Welcome to Uncomfortable Growth Uncut, where we celebrate those who defy fear, embrace growth, and live without regret. In a world that celebrates perfection, we rarely hear about the challenges, fears, and crossroads that successful leaders grapple with across work and life. Uncomfortable Growth Uncut shines a light on their personal story and the critical human skills we all need today to turn trials into triumph. So I'm here today with the incredible Mel Hopkins, who is a legend in the marketing industry in Australia and overseas, I might add. And most recently, she's set up her own advisory called Golden Eagle Advisory. And it's a wonderful thing to have you on this podcast, Mel, because I know so many people follow you and are inspired by you. So welcome to Uncomfortable Growth Uncut.
Thanks, Rowena. It is an absolute pleasure. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here. And actually, it's super interesting as someone that usually does lots of these types of things. I think this is the first one I've done in a very, very long time. And it's an absolute pleasure and privilege to be able to do it with you.
Oh, well, I've got the goosebumps already. So I'm just going to jump straight in and ask, what's your uncomfortable growth story?
I've got so many. I know you've written a book. I could probably write an addendum to your book. I really love uncomfortable growth because I talk a lot in my career about that I like comfortable discomfort. And that usually is when you're learning and growing and you feel slightly uncomfortable, but you're in a safe space.
Mm-hmm.
I think uncomfortable growth is often when it feels deeply uncomfortable and that safety, that the safety isn't there. But I think the story that I'll touch on is some of the story that I have shared on LinkedIn over the past sort of year, and that's just been for me a really big transition career-wise and personally, and something I didn't really expect at the age of 51.
That's the thing with uncomfortable growth. It often comes flying out of nowhere, or it's a sudden curveball or crossroad, and you're like, hey, this wasn't on my agenda. I thought I had it more or less, figured out by the age of 50 or so, but never say never.
Never say never. So, yeah, I think I've shared some challenges around my mental health last year. I probably from March onwards was sort of having a bit of a rough time and frustratingly didn't see all of the triggers, and I was still on my meds, etc. But in May last year, ended up in a psychiatric ICU and spent 3 nights there. So that's sort of within the public hospital, and that is where they put serious cases of people having a psychiatric incident, and they're worried about safety as well. And from there, I was then transferred to a private hospital where I spent, I think, about 7 or 8 days thereafter. And needless to say, it was horrific on every single level and a journey. I was super lucky to get a new psychiatrist. Not that there was anything wrong with my previous psychiatrist, but I think a different perspective was good. I was given a new diagnosis. So from severe depression, I have now been diagnosed with melancholia, which has and presents some slightly different symptoms. And, went on a big journey changing my meds out. Being an A-type personality, my psychiatrist, I think, realized that the private hospital I was in and a lot of the treatments that they sort of did in there around CBT, etc., probably weren't right for me. I've done a lot of that before, and we agreed that maybe the best thing was to to leave, to go home, to balance that. And if I felt that I was working in a safe environment, that going back to work and taking it easy would be
Mm-hmm.
quite sensible.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what I did.
Do you mind if I just ask you a few questions just
Sure.
to I guess just unpack this a little bit because it's so important and it's so brave of you to talk about this so openly. And for people who haven't had experience themselves or with a close loved one, it there are so many factors. And I guess I can talk a little bit more about this now because my daughter just last year got diagnosed with bipolar, and we had a tumultuous year. And up until then, I haven't been closely around anyone with a mental health condition, that's ongoing, because that's the other
Yeah.
thing. There's a difference between conditions which may be external triggers,
Yep.
like anxiety, versus conditions which are to do with genetics and just what you're born with. And
Yes.
so it's really tough. So can you just talk a little bit maybe about your history? Because you said you've had a diagnosis for a while, and when did you first realize that you had a
Uh,
condition?
Look, if I think now because of where I am and the treatment I've had probably since I was 18 or 19.
Mm-hmm.
I think in my early 20s I had a bit of a spin on Prozac when it was all the rage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I went and started seeing properly a psychiatrist in London
Mm-hmm.
around 2008 or 9,
Mm-hmm.
and was then placed on uh, some antidepressant tablets. And unfortunately, when I was in the UK, had a pretty severe episode
Mm-hmm.
where I was hospitalized,
Mm-hmm.
and my employment ended soon thereafter.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was incredibly brutal for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was quite ashamed of it, I guess, because I
Mm-hmm.
felt I could fix it. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was a journey. The important thing for me was I was really lucky in the UK that I was placed into a private facility.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in there, I realized how many other accomplished individuals also were there.
Mm-hmm.
I felt guilty with my depression because I'd sit in these groups and I'd not had any real, to my knowledge, traumatic backgrounds or
Yeah.
issues or challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're
And
like, why do I have this?
why the
Like,
hell am I here?
I
And
don't
I
even
just
have
sort
a
of
reason.
correct, correct. But I was given a beautiful book at the time by my psychiatrist, an amazing woman called Dr. Epen, which is Depression, The Curse of the Strong. And
Mm-hmm.
that was really quite interesting for me because it talked about a lot of high performing achievers that also suffer from types of depression
Mm-hmm.
that have perfectionistic tendencies, tend to sort of sit at this level. And unlike regular people, where you sort of move up and down in a point of prepping yourself and reviving and refreshing
Mm-hmm.
yourself, you just sit here. And the risk is you don't go down like that, you fall off an edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then I guess I dealt with it on and off, moved back to Australia
Mm-hmm.
2016, and it would have been 2017 where I had another episode. I was not hospitalized. I was referred to a psychiatrist over here in Australia, started
Mm-hmm.
seeing her, and she did some really great, important work for me on learning to accept it. And I think I realized there's public stigma, but
Mm-hmm.
the biggest barrier actually is the self stigma.
Uh-huh. Self-blame. It's like, why do I have this? Like, I've got no excuse.
Correct.
I haven't had a big traumatic incident.
And then I had to start separating that there is that I was diagnosed with severe depressive disorder, that very much was biological, but there were external triggers that could trigger it off. And I
Mhm.
also started building out thought patterns that
Mhm.
sort of have been engraved in titanium in my brain that are maybe, not so negative. And then the
Mhm.
big change for me was when I wrote on LinkedIn, and I'm trying to think when it was 2018, 2019 on Are You Okay Day. I just thought, screw this. And
Mhm.
I wrote that I was tired of hiding. And that was quite remarkable and amazing. My employer, like my CEO, didn't even know. And that then led to Mia Friedman doing an amazing podcast with me on No Filter. And I started feeling quite comfortable about about the fact that mental health, or mental ill health, as I call it,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, is something that should be discussed in the workplace. I don't want that to define me. I don't want
Mhm.
people to feel sorry for me about it.
Mhm.
There are some days where I just feel sad, but
Mhm.
I did think it was important to go share that story. And only last week in a session with my psychologist, I
Mhm.
said to her, other than medical professionals, here's the really hard thing. I don't think anyone can realize the journey I've been on, and at times how hard it has been,
Mhm.
and just the energy some days to get out of bed.
Yeah.
It's made me so resilient, and it's
Mhm.
driven such empathy that I have for others, and curiosity going through going through that journey, that
Mhm.
I hope that my story can normalize it for people that either suffer or have a loved one that suffers from it, or just create a little bit more understanding.
Yeah. It's so true because I mean, my perception um was before COVID, there was very little open conversation. And then COVID, I think because it affected everyone on multiple levels, right? So, there were so many triggers that affected everyone's mental health, whether it was an existing condition or um, a diagnosed condition from a psychiatrist or just intense anxiety and depression, etc. And so suddenly it became a conversation. But you're right. There's always been this, I don't know, hidden expectation that if you've got a mental health condition, that in some way you can't be high performing, or you can't be brilliant and have a mental health condition. You're either brilliant or crazy. There was just this kind of like assumption, which of course is based on a lack of knowledge and a lack of understanding. And I can totally understand why there has been such a, ignore it, don't let people know, keep it hidden, a sense of shame that has kept it under wraps, and having to cope with it just, on your own or with close friends and family who understand, which is why it's so brave and courageous to come out and go, you know what, all of me, I am with this condition and I'm brilliant. And that's one of the things I say to my daughter now, um, because she's got bipolar. It's going to be ongoing.
Yeah.
But I said it's not either or. And don't let that impact you. You have a bipolar and you are brilliant and you're an incredible human and I think that's one of the, I don't know, key things I've taken away over the last few years from COVID, but also having now closer firsthand experience through my daughter, that it's not this or this, it's not black and white.
It's not. I think the challenge with a lot of mental ill health is just how uh, every single diagnosis is like a fingerprint. So, I mean, there's obviously a whole lot of biological, you then get a whole lot of external or event-based triggers,
Yeah.
or, people will go through grief or breakups or situations that cause a moment in time, even feeling depressive.
Yeah.
Um, so that in itself becomes really complex. I think for me, my journey from last June to where I am now has
Mm.
been the most uncomfortable growth I've had in my entire life.
Wow.
And and I think as we unpack it, the scary
Yeah.
thing for me is whilst externally people will say, don't be stupid, um, I didn't believe I was brilliant. And I had to go on a journey to learn things like my career and my progression was almost hiding the fact that I didn't believe internally in who I was.
Hmm.
And it's really only been the past few months that I've started to learn to truly love myself. My
Hmm.
New Year's intention, not resolution, New Year's intention was all around self-love, and I am more than worth it.
Mm.
And yeah, I've been through a big journey trying to understand and realize and appreciate that I'm not just saying that on the surface level, but that I
Yeah.
truly, truly, truly believe it.
Yeah. So I know I interrupted you, but yeah, like take us through, what happened to you from around, I think you were at May last year to now. And you talked about how you had an episode that put you into hospital. What what has been all of the pieces that, looking back, you can say, wow, I've had my most uncomfortable growth ever. And I've actually had to learn how to really love myself. I mean, that is massive. So how did that all unwind and come back together?
Well, I think now looking back, you appreciate the universe gives you gifts, even though at times it
Mhm.
doesn't feel like it. So I was then in sort of towards the end of June made very publicly redundant from Seven. It
Mm.
is worth prefacing that Seven were absolutely across my health and were
Mm.
incredibly supportive throughout it. So
Mhm.
the two weren't didn't correlate. It just was sort of bad timing.
Mm.
And that then was incredibly hard for me. I'd never been made redundant before. Um,
Mhm.
I had made many people redundant and always said, don't take it personally.
Mhm.
Um, Easier said than done when it happens to you.
Mhm.
I've been working my butt off since I was 20. And now I wasn't sure what was next. I was overwhelmed with the industry support I got, um,
Mm.
but also found it quite intense.
Mm.
And and then I guess it was a case of trying to work out and wonder, who am I without my job?
Mhm.
Um, and and then I was still going through all of my recovery with my mental episode. So yeah, a lot of people would say, well, it was shit. Um, I, it's quite interesting. I have no anger or bitterness at all around Seven or what happened.
Mhm.
Really proud. I don't know why, but it just, I was disappointed and I guess I was a little sad at the time. Um, but then I just sort of sat there and thought, look, I've got three things happening in my life. I was having some relationship challenges. I had this health challenge. I had this career challenge. Jesus Christ, Mel, the universe has got you by your ankles and is shaking you, saying, now is the time. to go deep,
Yeah.
and you can't use work to cover up maybe some of the other elements, um,
Hmm.
which I'd done before. So I agreed that I was going to really take the time and not rush back into work and work on me. And
The
that meant,
hardest work to do.
that meant sitting in incredibly uncomfortable growth. I super lucky that I've got had amazing medical professionals, brilliant psychologist, a not warm and fluffy psychiatrist who's very biological. Um,
Mhm.
I started doing yoga for the reason that it was just a reason to get out of bed in the morning, but that became then quite important for me in my journey. I went away and spent time in Bali and, with some friends.
Hmm.
Um, I went on retreats. I did meditation retreats. It all sounds beautiful, but for months, nearly every day, um, there would be moments where I just wanted the pain to stop. Um,
Mm.
my psychologist banned me from cognitive behavioral therapy, and people can go Google it if they're not quite sure what it was. And it's a very good treatment, but her concern with me is I was going to try to rationalize and fix things, and she wanted me to sit in the bad feelings and
Hmm.
tell her what I felt like and what colors I saw, and then on the side, I was incredibly lucky. A beautiful friend of mine, Gemma Downey, has founded an amazing business called the Avere Method, and that's all around energetics and kinesiology. And um, I also went on a journey in tandem with my psychologist, going through that, and yeah, started to work out and unlock and unblock moments and things that had maybe happened in my life, thought patterns that I had created, um, and it's just been the most unbelievable journey. But it was filled with tears and me hating it and not wanting to do it and desperation and fear. Never fear about getting a job again, which for me was remarkable because I would have thought that would have been the first thing I would have been freaking about.
Hmm.
But fear of going so deep and then wanting to, well, I said feel normal. I think I've realized learning to feel the way I want to feel in this next chapter of my life.
That's so beautiful. And, I think I think it's true that, you said that, often we can use work to delay doing our important self-work. And that's often fair, right? Because we're busy, if we're working full time and everyone's working at 120% capacity. That's valid. But we also need to listen to ourselves and not just put it off, like, and find that courage. Like, I love what you talked about with the universe has said, stop, you need to do this. And it's not a clear path and it's really difficult, but what's on the other side is so much better. And that has a halo on everything because, the only person you're with every day of your life is yourself.
Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely. And, I think this is where I'll say that it was a blessing what happened to me with seven, and I'll be thankful because had not happened, I would have
Mhm.
returned to work and balanced myself with work and
Mhm.
um, still had therapy, but I probably wouldn't have been forced to delve so deep. I also appreciate I was incredibly lucky that I was in a financial situation where I was able to have that space and time.
Mm-hmm.
I always haven't, and I'm aware that a lot of people are
Mm-hmm.
not, but that was worth taking advantage of. Um, I mean, there were times when I wanted to slap people when they'd say to me, um, enjoy this. You're never going to get this time again. And I'd want to shake them going, yeah, that's easy. That's easy if you could tell me in 12 months that I'd have a job and I'd be happy
Mm-hmm.
and I won't have to worry
Mm-hmm.
about stuff. That drove
Mm-hmm.
me mental. So I'll never, ever, ever say that to anyone. It's hard.
Well, and also, yeah, you weren't having an enjoyable time. You were
No,
doing hard work.
I realized that a lot of people would say to me, what are you going to do next? And I said, I don't
Mm.
know. And it made a lot of people uncomfortable. What do you mean you don't
Mm.
know?
Mm.
I honestly, I don't, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't, and I'm still going through that journey at the moment. And we can sort
Mm.
of touch on some stuff, but I didn't, and it made people uncomfortable. I can remember being at an event where someone said to me, God, we're all waiting to see what Mel's going to do next. And it's going to be amazing. And we're so excited. And it was meant with, you know, beautiful,
Positive support. Yeah.
positive support. But that evening when I was going home in the car, it was like, I just realized, who am I doing this for?
Mm.
Am I doing it because I believe I need to be this great, shiny person? And I know that individual didn't mean that, but it was just an amazing trigger for me that
Mm.
actually I need to do it for me and what
Yep.
is completely, honestly, 100% right for me. Not
Yeah.
what the marketing press says, not
Yeah.
what the industry says,
Yeah.
not what I believe is the right thing, not because I'm worried people are going to think I'm taking a sideways or a backwards move.
Right.
What do I want to do?
Mm.
And I can recall at one stage having quite a teary moment on the phone with an incredibly dear friend of mine where I was saying, I just don't know what I want to do next. And who am I? My
Mm.
work has defined me. What is my life going to be? Um, and will I lose people in the process?
Mm.
And he said to me, Mel, I'll still love you if you're packing bags at Coles. Now, the irony with that is anyone that knows me knows that that's not what I'm going to do. But what it, the way it hit me was actually the people that know me as me and Mel as the individual, what I do and my status means nothing. They just
Mhm.
want me in their life, right? And they
Mhm.
want me to,
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's such an important insight as well because, we are social beings, right? So, we work in industries, we work in social media, with social media, there's a whole lot of visibility, comparisonitis, and that's just part of the industry and work. But the point I love that you're making is don't let it be the dominant thing that defines you. You are enough as is, regardless of whether you're packing bags at Coles or whether you're, I don't know, head of whatever, whatever, whatever. Um, and I can really relate to that because I went through a similar journey after I was made redundant. This is way back in 2015. And I also didn't know what I wanted to do. And anyway, I ended up working at Seven West, so there is the overlap in our lives. But as an internal consultant for a couple of years, and then David and I started our own business. But it was really discovering uncomfortable growth that has anchored me in the context that this is me. This is what I believe. So I don't see it as work. I see it as a calling that kind of crosses into work, but I don't think of it as work. And I can see it as something that will just continue to unfold because I feel it is me amplified. And there's a difference between work that you do for money, which is still a practical reality, let it be said.
Yeah.
Um, there's still that money thing, but there's also work. Or I don't even think of it as work. There's also stuff you do because it's who you are. And I feel like it actually brings out my best self because it's who I am on my best day.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Um, and working out what your purpose is.
Mm.
And, you know, I've always had, I was going to say an intellectual crush, but I also like, I date the guy tomorrow. I love Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
With the whole, your why and finding your why. And I've always been big on personal branding. But what I've started to explore is I've probably got a couple of purposes, externally, the
Uh-huh.
purpose I can have on making impact on others so they can be the very best versions of themselves, and
Hmm.
the impact I can make on businesses so the businesses can be the very best versions of themselves. And I believe I've got a bit of a superpower in helping and pushing people
Hmm.
doing that authentically.
Hmm.
Um, I've just had to learn, and it's still a work in progress, how I am the very best version of myself. And no one else can do that except me. And the best version of myself um, is me not judging who I am and me feeling a level of contentment, um, being unapologetic about who I am,
Hmm.
realizing words that people say um, that have been triggers for me. So, you're too much. Now sometimes it's said in, "Oh, Mel, you're too much." Like it's
It's
almost
a
a
positive.
compliment.
Hmm.
I take that as shit. I'm over the top. They don't think I'm enough, which
Mm.
is bizarre. Like, I'm sort of showing off. I'm
Mm.
too much. You're too loud. Well, yeah, I'm loud. Yes, I am loud. And I've got to learn to lower my voice. But that's not always said either as a negative, but I'd take that as a negative.
Yeah.
I'm too sensitive. And I would take that as a negative. Um, and it would sort of trigger and pull me back. I am competitive. I'm ambitious. Um, I'm a risk taker. I now take all of that and rework it in the fact that
Mm.
um, I'm one of the rare individuals that loves taking risks.
Hmm.
Yes, at times, or most of the times, I'm loud, but I am energetic and brimming with
Hmm.
optimism and can fill a room when I walk within
Yeah.
it. My sensitivity is one of my biggest gifts because I am attuned to individuals' feelings
Mhm.
and what they're thinking. Um, and I'm I'm not too much. I think I still struggle with that a little in the language, but what I am is just enough for me. And I'm the individual that's always willing to put my head above the parapet. So that is who I am. And that doesn't mean in work you don't, or life, you don't take on board
Hmm.
constructive
Feedback.
criticism. And, I'm not loud, bashful, and risk-taking in a board meeting. But yeah, it's interesting just even how you turn words, and sometimes those words have been said to me to hurt, but most of the times
It's about your uniqueness.
it is, and And this is why this journey has been so important for me in just working through the moments and words that I have created to be negative.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, this is sort of going off piece from a work perspective, but when I was 18, I was at a party. And people say nasty things to you all the time, and I always find it remarkable how sometimes they never stick.
Mm-hmm.
And my family, we'd been away over the Christmas and New Year period. My long-term boyfriend had kissed a girl on New Year's Eve who I'd sort of deemed as my arch nemesis.
Uh-huh.
But I was like, but I was away, so of course it's okay. Um, I was back, we're at a party, and she was sniggering as I walked past her. And I went up to her and said, look, if you've got something to say about me, why don't you say it to my face instead
Mm.
of behind my back? And there was a bit of a tussle back and forth, but ultimately she said, my boyfriend, when I said to him, why are you with Mel instead of me? He said, well, you have the beauty, but Mel has the personality. And what I hadn't appreciated until probably 18 months ago,
Mm.
when anyone said to me, Mel, you've got a great personality, I read that as Mel, you're ugly.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I spent
Mm.
my entire adult life feeling unattractive.
Mm.
And of course, I've got a great personality, and of course, lots of people say that. But unlocking and really appreciating and working through that, we have moments in life, and I'm sure people have said worse things to me,
Mm-hmm.
but certain
That
things
stuff.
get ingrained and they start
Mm-hmm.
becoming this thought pattern. I think the same
Mm-hmm.
happens with I'm not going to get a promotion or I'm not going to get this. Like, that was
Mm.
18, well worn and trodden. And look, I'm not going to end up on the front of Vogue, but I'm now like at 51, I'm like, I'm pretty good and I'm
Yeah.
quite happy rocking a bikini on the beach. And I'm so pissed that I spent, you know, the
All
bulk of
that
my adult
years.
life thinking I wasn't attractive um, because of one stupid thing that I felt was forever reinforced when people, because what people didn't say to me was, Mel, you're pretty. They'd say, God, you've got a great personality. And actually that personality encompasses all of me.
Yeah. Wow. Because there are things that are said to us, particularly when we're going through high emotional journeys, which teen years, right, are highly volatile and
Correct.
emotional, that we don't realize are actually in our subconscious and shaping our beliefs so we don't see things necessarily as they are. I do a lot of work now in my uncomfortable growth program about what's in your small self versus best self. And it's very simplified psychology, but what's interesting is we all have a small self and it's dominant because of our wiring, but you have to be really specific about what's in your own because you have a belief coming from a throwaway remark from a girl who kissed your boyfriend at 18 around you're not good looking, right? And every time someone reinforces your personality, which is, such a beautiful thing, you just heard you're ugly.
Yeah.
And so that's in your small self circle, but we've all got different things in our small self circle.
Which is why for me it is so important, I think, to do self work.
I do too.
And that self work can be through reading and
Mm-hmm.
watching. For some people, it can be religion or spiritual. For some people, actually running.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I have appreciated more than ever now is the importance of professionals helping you through. I wouldn't have been able to put those two things together without the professional help that I had. And trust me, there's a million and one others like that. Um, um, executive coaches, psychologists, Medicare, if you go to your doctor
Mhm.
and you get a mental health plan from your doctor, so it's got to be, verified. But
Mhm.
Medicare in 1 year will give you a very, 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 very high percentage of cover towards psychology.
Yeah.
Um, it's important,
Important because it
and
impacts your whole life.
it is. And look, I think, psychologists, you want to find one that is right for you. And I've had different psychologists and I've had different executive coaches that have played different roles at different times. But doing that self-work, is important, and putting yourself first is
Mm-hmm.
incredibly important.
Yeah. And doing self-work does require you to make space for you, which I know a lot of people feel selfish about it. Um,
Yeah,
before they start, they feel that oh, I don't have time or it's not fair. I've got all these, other things to do. I've got to look after the family. But it's so important.
well, I think there's a mix. It's either selfish, or if I can be even more blunt, it's fucking terrifying.
Mm.
So sometimes it's easier
Yeah.
not to lift the lid off,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, fuck, I don't actually have the time and space, nor do I know if I've got the capacity to be able
Yeah.
to manage to let the lid off.
Yeah.
Um, and again, this is why I think it happens at different stages in life. There are different periods.
Mm.
This was the time for me to really properly lift
Mm.
the lid off. And I'm thankful for Seven, um, because it's taught me so much about who I am. And I've had that space. And, I'm starting an amazing journey and next chapter in a really different mindset.
Yeah. So tell us about the way forward. What's this new chapter that you're so excited about? That you've come through all the hard work and now there's light on the horizon.
There is light. There's still more hard work.
Hmm.
It's not completely done. Um, I I've spent my life living to work and
Hmm.
have been incredibly successful. Um, but to the detriment of me, probably at
Hmm.
times. And I
Hmm.
want this next journey to be working to live. And
Hmm.
that does not mean I will be less committed or less hardworking, but
Hmm.
I, in my mind, need to learn to set different boundaries and detach in different ways.
Hmm.
Um, I've been doing some really amazing consulting recently outside of the marketing sphere, which has been great. And I've been having that comfortable discomfort,
Hmm.
working with really bright and intelligent people, looking at different business problems. It's made me really appreciate and realize different skill sets that I've got, and the power that I have in corporate strategy, in looking around corners, in the art of the hustle,
Hmm.
um, which excites me. I had a couple of conversations about roles, one in which I chose not to progress after a couple of sessions because I realized actually it would be all encompassing and I would lose myself probably. I didn't feel strong enough. Another one that I didn't think I'd be interested in, and those conversations are sort of still ongoing. A third one, which is also super interesting for me. So I'm working through, I guess, what
Mm.
is next. I know that all sounds horribly vague, and
No, you're popping possibilities.
I know,
You're
and
like,
Paul McIntyre from MI3 is going to be like, seriously, Mel, throw me a bone. But I'm lucky that I am working with great people and I'm generating an income. I've got a good balance, and it's allowed me to be a lot clearer in what I will say yes to next,
mm,
um, in a permanent capacity. And I think I will go back permanent. I miss belonging to a tribe. That's who I
mm,
am. Um,
mm-hmm,
the consultancy has been great, and it will, that will continue as long as I need it to. But
mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's sort of where I am. So watch this space. I'm incredibly thankful to a number of amazing humans who've supported me through this.
Mm-hmm.
And I've surprised myself with, you know, executive headhunters calling and suggesting jobs and options that I've sort of just said no without even investigating. But that's because I knew
Yeah.
I wasn't ready.
You
So,
were
um,
clearer on what was important to you. And so it wasn't about the job, it was about putting you first. What's
yes,
important to you? How is that going to work in an actual role?
yes. And I want to be in a position where I believe, and what's not even I believe, I think probably most people that have worked with me would say that I create impact.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Jesus, if I just really worked on my own self-love and self-respect, imagine how much more impact I could have created. So that is what I really want to focus on, and I'm excited about seeing, you know, what's to come in that space, whilst at the same time ensuring that I give myself the right level of self-care. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I've now finally realized that my last episode was my scariest yet, and I need to lean into that as well and ensure that I create a life that protects me from that and ensures that I'm around for a long time to come.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. I actually love what you just said around when I'm my best self, then I can have more impact
Yeah.
because you don't have all those, self-doubts and the triggers don't trigger you and take you off balance. And I think that's such a great articulation because to the point you were making, pulling the lid off can be fucking terrifying. But what people may not be aware of is how good it is on the other side. And it's not just absence of the negative, right? It's actually the synergy and momentum that comes from being more you and understanding all of the pieces around that. So to your point, it's like taking care of your health and self-care and preventing episodes. So getting, being aware of that, but also being more you because you're brilliant as is. And that's where you get that huge momentum. And it's something that I've genuinely discovered too. The more I am more me and embrace all of those aspects and find ways to bring that to life, the more impact I can see because it's that courage and conviction that just makes other people go, wow, like this is coming from a genuine place. It's not something I'm just saying. It's
Yeah.
an absolute. You feel it in the energy. You feel it in the conviction of the person.
Yeah. I think, Rowena, the thing I just sort of want to wrap up on is it's not for the faint-hearted. It's not easy.
No, it's
I've
not.
now learnt there's no such thing as perfection, even though I try to strive to it. I mean, last Monday, I sort of spun off into a tree. And again, my psychologist is brilliant in like literally, I have these thought patterns that are like
Mhm.
engraved in titanium that we're trying to redo. So that's going to happen at times, and I have to forgive myself for that. That's okay.
Mhm.
Um, but we are individuals,
Mhm.
and I think more than ever in the world at the moment, with everything that is
Mhm.
going on and so much external pressure and stress
Mhm.
globally and at home, learning to be your best individual self means that actually the people around you at work and family will will gravitate to you more and good things will happen. And
Mm.
actually, if that doesn't work anymore for family or work, then it's just a sign that maybe that wasn't right.
Yes. Yep. And that's the thing, because uncomfortable growth continues.
It does.
It doesn't end. But it's that, it's that experience of there is such good things on the other side. It makes you braver next time there's a crossroad or a curveball, or like you said, things aren't just making sense. Things aren't right. Maybe it's a catalyst for that next stage, and being okay with that, I think is it's a skill that you learn. It's a skill that you learn through experience. It's not something you can know academically, I don't think. You may know it, but you have to live it to really believe it.
Yeah, I mean, what does someone once say to me? The good thing about shit is it makes great fertilizer.
I love that.
It helps you grow.
I love that. Okay, so we're going to wrap up. I have three quick fire questions for you, just to wrap it out. So the first one is, what are three things you've learned about yourself in recent years?
Oh my God.
You're not
Three
ugly.
things. Three things that I've learned about myself in recent years. I'm a great mum, and that's something I don't usually
Hmm.
talk about at all from a business
Oh.
perspective. But I have been brilliant working full time, traveling, but raising the most confident, amazing daughter, and I'm so super proud of her. So that would be number one. Um, Number two, um, I have a huge level of compassion and love for those close to me,
Mm.
and letting people in sometimes when things are tough, which because I always want to be seen as the shiny strong one, has
Mm.
been the best thing, and saying I'm not okay.
Mm.
Um, and the third thing is I'm a student of life. Like I'm just going to keep learning. Like
Mm.
I'm inspired by Martha Stewart. She's freaking 83.
I
And
know.
I am like, she's on fire and I want to be Martha Stewart at 83. Maybe not with the empire, but just her mindset and vision and just living life. So I guess they would be my three.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'm the same when I look at like people who are like incredible and they're like powering on in their mid 80s,
Yeah.
doing the most incredible stuff. And you're like, yes, that's the role model for me. Okay, next question. What's important to you at the moment in your life?
Me.
Yeah.
And I had an interview the other day where someone said to me, what's your leadership journey, or what are you focusing on in your leadership journey for the next 12 months? And I said, me. And they said,
Mhm.
excuse me. And I said, I think I'm pretty good with leading high performing teams. I'm pretty good, if not great, at managing peers, managing upwards, managing down,
Uh-huh.
and influencing. I need to work on my own personal leadership. And by that, I mean, where do I put boundaries up so I can be the best version of myself? So, yeah.
Fabulous. Last question. Of course, there's three parts. What is a current fear, inspiration, and challenge? So we have fear, inspiration, and challenge.
Current fear, inspiration, and challenge. Okay. Um, at times I am fearful that is all of this hard work ultimately going to pay off in the long run. That's me being very open.
Yeah.
I know 98% of the time, yes, but 2% of the time that sort of comes in. Inspiration, was it?
Inspiration and then challenge.
I'm inspired about the endless possibilities in life, and that just by focusing on the present and having a great mindset and being authentic and imbuing who you are, that the opportunities that have become attracted to me, like magnetized to me, are unbelievable. And my biggest challenge, that's I think my biggest challenge still is my emotional regulation. That is something I've got to work on. It's personally and in work environments, and at its best it's unbelievable, and in work I've managed it way better. But yeah, I occasionally, and I know part of this is to do with my depression now too, but I can have triggers and I can go from 0 to 1,000. And yeah, that's the challenge I really want to focus on mastering.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Thank you so much, Mel. It's been such a beautiful episode, and thank you just for being so open and real and inspirational to others.
Thanks, Rowena. It means the world.
If you are inspired but thinking, I can't do that, then you are so wrong. Anyone can learn the art of uncomfortable growth with the help of my flagship program, Uncomfortable Growth, Own Your Reinvention. In this, you will learn to navigate your own internal contradictions to finally unlock the courage and commitment to live a deeply meaningful life by design and on your terms. Uncomfortable growth is about the struggle and joy in discovering who you are, what you truly want, and how to make it happen. If this is something you are ready for, then find out more at www.rowenamillward.com. What have you got to lose, or more importantly, gain?